You know that feeling when something around your team shifts and most of the league hasn't caught it yet? When you start to realize the front office is thinking 2, 3 moves ahead, while everyone on national TV is still talking about last season's problems? That's exactly where I am with this Golden State group right now, watching the first stretch of games, watching how the West is shaping up, watching how other franchises are quietly sliding into crisis, and seeing one specific opportunity forming on the horizon that, if it becomes real, could be the clearest sign yet that the Warriors are done flirting with half measures and ready to weaponize this final window around Stephen Curry in a way that actually respects his legacy. This is Warriors News Fan Report. I'm here with you, like always, speaking straight to you, one-on-one, with serious, verified context, no cheap noise, just honest breakdowns about what is really going on with our franchise and the moves that can change everything. And what I want to walk you through today is not just a name, not just a headline, but a complete picture of why the way this season has started for Golden State, and for one particular Western Conference rival, has opened a door that the front office has been studying for months. Golden State begins this campaign above 500, not perfect, not dominant, but clearly more mature. The rotation is tighter, the defensive identity is sharper and stretches. Jimmy Butler's presence has stabilized late-game possessions, the young guys are being asked to play roles instead of miracles, and Curry, even with the mileage, remains the soul and offensive compass of everything. But if you've been paying attention possession by possession like I have, you already know the one thing that still screams at you in big matchups. This team needs one more long, switchable, high-volume shooter on the wing who can guard up, run in transition, finish plays without needing to hijack the offense, and still punish defenses the second they tilt one step too far towards Steph or Jimmy. On the other side, you've got New Orleans, a franchise that came into the year talking about continuity, upside, and this maybe being the season where their talent finally translates, and instead they've stumbled out flat, disconnected, without rhythm. And suddenly every national segment is asking the same question. If this group doesn't click fast, who becomes the sacrificial piece? Who becomes the asset they move not because he isn't good, but because he's their most valuable chip? And that's where the conversation we're having tonight quietly starts, not with fantasy trades, but with a very real pattern emerging. Reports over the last months that Golden State has a strong internal appreciation for a certain 6'8" shooter with length, defensive tools, and real upside, and that calls have already been made in the past to check on his availability, even if the first answer from New Orleans was a firm no. When a front office circles a profile like that and doesn't let go, when those discussions line up with a rival's brutal start and mounting pressure, that's not an accident. That's homework meeting opportunity. So let me talk to you about why this profile matters so much before we put a name on it, because fit is everything if you're serious about winning now without detonating the future. You have Steph, still bending defenses wherever he stands. You have Butler, a physical wing who can create, defend, and give you playoff possessions without panic. You have Draymond as the organizer, screen setter, defensive quarterback, emotional thermostat. You have complementary pieces who can shoot, slash, eat minutes. What is the missing piece in that puzzle? It's not another ball-dominant star, it's not a low-efficiency volume scorer, it's an ultra-modern wing. Length to switch 1 through 4, discipline to stay attached off the ball, willingness to run the lane, gravity as a shooter to open paint for Steph's drives and Butler's post-ups, and just enough off-the-bounce juice to attack closeouts so the offense doesn't stall if teams sell out on the primary creators. Now zoom back to the broader context. The West is stacked with big, physical perimeter scorers and jumbo creators. If you want to survive 7-game series against those teams, you can't just rely on aging vets and undersized guards chasing them. You need someone in that 6'8" mold who lives for those assignments and still spaces to the line at near elite volume. That's the basketball logic. Then there is the cap and asset logic, and I'm going to be very clear here with you. The Warriors aren't in a position where they can just throw picks around for fun. Every move has to thread the needle between maximizing Curry's last chapter, honoring Butler's competitive timeline, and not leaving the cupboard empty when it's finally time to retool. That's why whenever you hear this front office tied to a target, you need to ask if that player is not just a name, but someone who justifies moving real assets like Jonathan Kuminga, Moses Moody, or future firsts, because he fits both the now and the next 3 to 4 seasons. And this is where, if you've been following the rumors as closely as I have, the silhouette becomes unmistakable. We are talking about a 25-year-old wing who has already shown he can flirt with 40% from 3 on serious volume, who runs the floor hard, finishes above the rim, and has the tools to guard multiple positions when locked in.
We're talking about a contract that sits in that mid to high tier where you can realistically build a legal trade framework using a combination of young players and matching salaries without touching Steph, Butler, or Draymond. We're talking about someone other teams around the league label as a dream target for contenders and whose name has directly been connected to the Warriors by reports describing our front office as having a very real affinity for his game. You see how the pieces connect? Struggling Pelicans start, external pressure on their front office, a roster full of overlapping skill sets, a looming decision on how many big contracts they're willing to carry, and sitting in the middle of all that is a player who might bring them a blue-chip forward like Kuminga, draft capital, and the chance to rebalance their books. While for Golden State, he becomes the missing elastic between eras. Now I know what you're thinking because I've seen the reaction every time his name pops up on social media. They're never giving him up, it's too expensive, don't touch Kuminga, he's not worth multiple picks, and I respect all of that, because this space exists to treat you like people who understand the game, not like engagement metrics. But here's the other side that has to be said honestly. If you are serious about one more real title chase with Steph as the centerpiece, you are not finding that upgrade in the bargain bin. The kind of two-way wing who can defend at the point of attack, switch actions, and hit deep threes off movement is the most valuable currency in the modern NBA after superstar creators. That player is going to cost you something that hurts. And the reason this specific rumor keeps surfacing is because, unlike other fantasy names, this one fits the Warriors' identity so cleanly that people inside and outside the league can't help but circle back to it. The spacing combinations you can run with Steph flying off screens, Butler operating in the mid-post, Draymond handling handoffs, and this wing parked in either corner or lifting to the slot are exactly what keeps defenses awake at night. Shift one step the wrong way and you're punished. So let's stop talking in shadows and call it what it is at this point of the discussion because we've earned it. The player is Trey Murphy III, and the serious discussions around the league frame him as the kind of piece Golden State would love to pry loose if New Orleans ever opens the door. That doesn't mean a deal is done, it doesn't mean the Pelicans are actively shopping him, and it definitely doesn't mean you wake up tomorrow and he's suddenly in a Warriors jersey. What it does mean is that the idea of Trey Murphy in Golden State has moved from social media fantasy to an option professionals are at least modeling. And when you put his profile onto our current roster, the combination is hard to ignore. Murphy gives you size on the wing that we've been missing consistently since the height of the dynasty. He runs the floor in a way that perfectly matches our desire to push off misses. He is comfortable spotting up well beyond the line, which stretches defenses even more around Steph. And he doesn't need the ball to stay impactful, which is crucial when you already have high-usage engines in Steph and Butler. Defensively, he lets you play bigger without sacrificing spacing, switching onto bigger forwards so Draymond can roam, or onto guards when you want to keep Steph out of the most punishing matchups. In short, he is the archetype we've been dreaming about next to this core. From there, the hard part starts, and I want to walk you through it with you with full transparency. How do you even build a realistic framework without tearing out the team's future?
The packages most often imagined involve Kuminga or Moody plus picks, sometimes a third team to absorb money and send complementary pieces. Moving Kuminga would be emotionally brutal for a lot of us because he represents that bridge into the next era, an athlete with size, progression, and flashes of two-way violence that you don't casually give away. The question the front office has to answer, and that we have to be honest about as fans, is whether Trey Murphy's present value and projection alongside Curry and Butler outweigh the upside of waiting on Kuminga to fully hit in this specific timeline. It's not just who is the better player in a vacuum. It's who is the better fit next to your stars, under your coach, inside your schemes, with the pressure of contending right now. Murphy has already proven he can be a high-level role player, bordering on secondary option on a good team. Kuminga is still writing that story. That's the axis of the debate. What keeps me optimistic is that the Warriors have been more disciplined lately. They've lived through rushed decisions. They've seen what happens when you misread your window, and they know any trade that sends out a young cornerstone for a more established piece has to be bulletproof in terms of fit, health, and character. There's also the Pelicans' viewpoint, which matters more than our wish list. They're not going to hand over Murphy just because they've had a bad start. Any serious deal will need to convince them that they are not downgrading their long-term outlook. That could mean elite upside in return, strong pick compensation, or a multi-team construction that helps them rebalance that roster around whoever they decide are their foundational pieces. That's why most of the informed scenarios you see or hear involve at least 3 teams. Golden State gets Murphy, New Orleans gets a blend of young forwards and picks, and a third team picks up shooters or contracts they like in exchange for flexibility. What makes this interesting for us is that the Warriors actually have the ingredients to sit at that table now. Interesting prospects, movable mid-range salaries, and an ownership group that, despite tax pressure, has never been shy about paying for a group they believe can compete at the top. The latest CBA restrictions make stacking traditional big threes harder, but they also make hitting on the right 25-year-old two-way wing even more valuable, because that's how you stay elite without falling into every punitive apron trap. I want to underline something that I think gets lost when these rumors hit your phone in 3-sentence blasts. None of this is about panic. A team like Golden State doesn't monitor Trey Murphy because they are desperate. They monitor someone like him because his skill set amplifies what they already do well and patches the weaknesses most likely to kill them in a playoff series. Every early game this year has underlined the same theme. When the offense stalls, it's usually because defenses load up on Steph and dare the others to either beat closeouts or punish mismatches consistently. When the defense cracks, it's often because we don't have enough length at the point of attack or enough size on the wings when Draymond is covering for everybody. Murphy directly addresses both problems. So as I'm talking to you here, as someone who lives this team emotionally but tries to think like a front office, I see this rumor not as empty noise, but as a logical extension of who the Warriors want to be, a franchise that isn't afraid to exchange potential for certainty, when the certainty fits both the present and the near future. Now, I want to pull you into the conversation because you are part of this ecosystem whether people in suits admit it or not. If, and only if, a Trey Murphy deal became truly available at a serious but fair price, where is your line? Would you move Kuminga if it meant locking in a 25-year-old wing who slides perfectly into Kerr's system and extends the Curry window without needing 20 shots? Would you move Moody and multiple firsts instead? Would you insist on protecting certain picks? I want you to answer genuinely below with your real sense of what it means to go all in one more time while still respecting the future of this jersey. Because this is not a video game. This is about building a roster that Curry, Butler, and Draymond can trust when they step into a Game 6 on the road and need someone else to hit a shot or get a stop. Your perspective helps shape the tone around this front office. They feel when a move is aligned with what the fan base believes in, and they also feel when a move would break something deeper than a rotation pattern. As of right now, I'm going to be very clear. Trey Murphy is not a Warrior. There is no official agreement, and the Pelicans have every right to hold him unless an offer absolutely blows them away. What we do have is a convergence of factors that makes this more than a random talking point. You have documented interest from Golden State. You have a rocky start and external pressure that could, if it continues, push New Orleans to consider structural changes. You have a Warriors timeline that demands bold but intelligent aggression, not passive nostalgia. And you have a player whose combination of age, contract, and skill package fits us almost too well. Put that together, and it's no surprise that people inside the league are looking at this and saying, quietly, if something big happens before the deadline or next summer, don't be shocked if Trey Murphy's name is right in the middle of it. So here is my concise read for you before we close. If the price for Murphy becomes remotely reasonable, meaning you are not burning every single future asset, and you are not destroying your depth chart, this is exactly the type of move that can transform the Warriors from dangerous if things break right to a structurally sound contender that matches up with the biggest, longest, most physical teams in the conference. It would be a signal to Steph that the organization is still serious about his window, a message to the rest of the league that Golden State is not done making smart, painful, winning trades, and at the same time, a commitment to a younger core piece who can carry part of the identity forward when the legends eventually step away. If the cost crosses into reckless territory, if it demands every young piece and every pick with no safety net, then the right answer is to walk away and trust that internal development plus selective smaller moves can still keep this group in the fight. That balance is where great front offices earn their reputation. Now, I want to hear from you directly. Would you pull the trigger on a Trey Murphy deal built around one of our young pieces and draft capital if it meant solidifying this roster for the next 3 to 4 years? Or do you think the smarter play is holding firm, betting on Kuminga's leap and keeping flexibility for another type of star or wing down the line? Drop your thoughts below. Tell me where your line is, because I read what you write, and this community exists exactly for this level of serious discussion about our team. And just to ground this in real basketball and not just theory, imagine specific playoff moments. Curry and Murphy running a two-man action high on the right side while Butler lurks on the weak side post, Draymond at the top orchestrating another shooter spaced in the opposite corner. If the defense chases Steph over the screen, Murphy pops or slips to space, and you've got a clean 3 for a 6'8 shooter. If they switch a smaller guard onto him, he dives hard to the rim and forces help, opening the swing pass. If they overhelp on Butler's drives, the kickout is not to a hesitant role player, it's to a proven shooter with size. On defense, think about closing with Steph, Murphy, Butler, Draymond, and a mobile big. You can switch almost everything on the perimeter, hide Steph more intelligently, send Murphy to track the hottest wing, let Butler bother the primary initiator, and unleash Draymond as a roaming free safety blowing up actions. That's not a fantasy reel, it's a coherent identity. Longer, smarter, tougher, exactly what this era of the West demands. At the same time, I'm not blind to the risk. Murphy has dealt with injuries. The cost will be heavy, and there is a world where you move a young piece and the new fit never fully explodes the way you imagined. That's why, for me, the key is discipline. If New Orleans pushes beyond that narrow corridor where the value makes sense, the Warriors have to be ready to step back, protect their future, and trust their internal core. But if the door opens at the right price, then yes, going after Trey Murphy is the type of calculated aggression that matches everything this franchise has claimed to be in the Curry era. If you appreciate getting this kind of detailed, honest look at what these rumors really mean instead of just thumbnails and yelling, make sure you're subscribed, turn on notifications, and stay close to Warriors News Fan Report, because every time a serious link appears, every time the front office makes a move or a high-level rumor gains traction, I'll be right here with you, breaking it down quickly and deeply from the perspective of someone who wants to see Steph's era end the way it deserves. Competitive, respected, and with every possible smart swing taken. Until then, stay locked in, stay engaged in the comments, and let's keep holding this franchise to the highest standard together.